Here we go. What is up, everybody? It's Bart Johnson here, and once again, it is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Today is March 28th, and how is everybody doing? Hopefully, everyone in quarantine hasn't lost their minds yet. Hopefully, you're hanging in there and keeping it together, finding ways to keep yourself occupied, whether it be with all those things on your to-do list that you pushed off because you never had enough time, or maybe it's just hanging out and watching some streams on YouTube. And at this moment, I actually hope that's your choice, because I hope you guys are ready to hang out and check out something pretty cool today. As you know, if you're in the stream, obviously, we're going to be looking at my Z CAM rig today and all the bits and accessories that I've added to it to turn it into sort of the easiest to use configuration, for me at least. Remember, this is for me, in order to use it in various circumstances. You'll see as we go along. There's a lot of things that upgrade the ease of use. But before we dive into it, I of course want to welcome all of you who are watching live. And if you're watching the replay of this later on, well, come on guys, you know, make sure you subscribe, click that notification bell. Otherwise, how are you going to know when I'm going live and then you don't get to come in and hang out and enjoy the live experience and chatting back and forth like Rob is doing right now? Because as you can see, we have our live chat here, and Rob is the first one in here, and he's digging the hold music. Yeah, I have some elevator music that I added to the stream starting soon. I trimmed that off in the replay, so if you're watching the replay, you'll have to join live so you can hear the sweet elevator music. But if anybody else is in here and hanging out during this, feel free to comment in the chat. You will pop up here on the screen. I also have it on the screen in front of me so I can try and keep track of it. Feel free to comment, ask any questions along the way, and I'll certainly do my best to answer them. Yeah, hopefully we have a cool hangout and a cool little conversation today. So without further ado, I think we're going to get right into it. First, I'm going to have a sip. Of course, it's Saturday afternoon, so at-home brunch in quarantine. So we're, you know, got a little mimosa here. So let's get that to get us started up. I think this is mostly champagne. My wife made it, and they're pretty intense. So, all right, so there we go. Let's get this sucker going then. So today we're going to be taking a look at this camera right here. So if you guys caught my live stream last week, I did a lot of catching up because I've been MIA and offline for about 4 months. And this is one of the things that I mentioned in our catch up, is that I bought a new camera during that downtime. And one that you probably wouldn't have expected me to pick up, but I was really intrigued by it, decided to go for it. This is the Z CAM E2 F6. So this is a full frame sensor in there, and it shoots up to 6K. Internal codecs are H.264, H.265, ProRes. They have their Z-RAW format, which I haven't messed with very much. Hey, Shiznuts, good to see you in here. Furworks, always a pleasure to have you in here as well. Good to see we're getting a little crowd going. But yeah, this camera, I'd played with the prototypes of the E2. Mostly the Super 35 sensor when I was at NAB last year. And since then, they've come out with a full line of 3 cameras that they called sort of their flagship cameras. So that's the S6, which is a Super 35 6K capable camera. The F6, which I have here, which is F for full frame 6K. And then they have the F8 as well, which is full frame 8K. So that was a little bit crazy. I found this to kind of be the sweet spot in terms of resolutions and codecs and stuff like that. And while I don't necessarily see myself shooting a ton of 6K, it also has some great 4K. And also, I mean, just look at the size of it. So I do have it in a cage right here. We're going to go over this cage and all the stuff in it. I just didn't feel like taking it out. But as you can see, this sucker's just like, it's a little cube. Full metal cube, nice EF mount here on the front, but really, really cool camera. And I was very lucky to get a hold of this because obviously there's, shipping issues in China, and also just the demand for these cameras even without that was super high. But I actually found someone on a local forum who was selling it and actually sold it to me with a few of these accessories already in it, ones that I would have chose anyway, but I got a great deal and I was able to get it. I haven't shot a lot of footage with this, admittedly, because of course we are in quarantine. I did get to take it out yesterday. The sun was out, and so I filmed some stuff in the backyard here, shot some footage of my dog, one of the Huskies, to kind of see what the 6K detail looked like. But I think I'm going to try and cut some of that stuff together. It's not super scientific or anything, but I'm going to try and at least put that out there so you guys can actually see some stuff from this camera, as opposed to me just talking about the camera and holding it. You guys want to see some footage from it. So I'm going to try and get that done, perhaps even this afternoon. So let's see what we got in the comments here before we start really diving into the camera here. Tim Nye says, do you know how the Nucleus Nano integrates with the PortKeys BM5 monitor? What does the cable get you? You are in the right place, my friend, because that is on the list. If you want to kind of peek ahead as to the accessories that we're going to talk about, I've listed everything down in the description below, along with affiliate links to where you can go and pick those up. But there's a list of everything we're going to go over. There's a lot of stuff. But the Nucleus Nano system we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to show you the cables that I got and how everything works together. Trevor says, Z CAM is a great camera. I'm never surprised when people buy it. I think the surprise for me is that I'm usually a little bit more meticulous and I like to do a little bit more testing, but I basically bought this thing almost like sight unseen. But so far, not regretting it. Trevor says, I had offers from people to buy the S6 and the F6, but got an S1H instead. So, okay, so yeah. Shiznut says, had the Z CAM E1. Yeah, that was a way different camera long ago. Was afraid the E2 was designed to be for tethered operation in like studios and whatnot, but like the Blackmagic Cinema Studio camera. Yeah, so it's not, obviously. It can be a standalone cinema camera. It does need some stuff to work. So as you can see, there is a tiny screen up here that you can pull up actually your image on there. But I mean, look at this thing. It's teeny tiny. This is mostly just for the menu. So there is no screen really, no real usable screen on here. So a monitor is going to be a must. Like I said, we're going to be looking at accessories for what they call the flagship models. So there's the E2, there's the E2C, and those are actually a little bit different of a form factor for the body. Most of the accessories will still work that we're going to talk about today, but stuff like the cage in particular, there's a little bit different of a form factor to those other bodies. So the flagship models, the S6, F6, and F8, everything that I'm talking about today is going to work for those, but you can very, very easily get the matching products for the other versions if you have a different one. Let's see, Tim saying, awesome, thanks. So hard to find specifics. Yeah, you're going to get the specifics today on that Nucleus Nano and how it fits into this entire setup. So yeah, first let's talk about, obviously we've got this cage on here. So like I said, there's links to everything down in the description below. This camera does come with mounting points on the sides of it, which is actually really nice. But instead of trying to mount stuff with arms and whatnot to the body of the camera itself, they're actually underneath this here. I went and I'm usually not a cage kind of guy, but it made sense for this little body. This is a small rig cage. So again, this is a small rig cage made specifically for the flagship models. There's a link down in the description below. You can get a small rig cage. They do make one for the other Z CAM E2 models as well. And I do actually have a few additional parts on here. I just didn't feel like unbolting them. So the cage is real nice, wraps all around, tons and tons of, let me get in here, tons and tons of mounting points all over. This area attachment, this rosette attachment here is part of it. And it fits snugly, secures to the top of the camera, secures to the bottom of the camera, and mounting points all over the place, as well as protection, exactly what you would expect from a cage. Now, if we look at the top here, here's one of the first things that I added. So I added this little NATO rail. This is also from Small Rig, and this will allow me to mount a top handle, and we'll get to that. But I did add this. Again, links to absolutely everything are down below in the description. I like this one because they made it super slim So it's not as big as the old ones were. But, you know, plenty of mounting points, so I was able to attach that right there. Another attachment that we'll get to is this right here I added on. This is actually a quick release from Small Rig for the Nucleus Nano so that I can mount the wheel actually right on here and then quickly pull the lever and take it off. And we'll take a look at that later, but I did want you to know this does not come with the cage. This is a separate purchase, and I bolted it on. And I bolted it on in a spot where it stays out of the way of the card slot here. So I do use CFast cards. So if you mounted this like further down on this rail, it ends up getting in the way. And this kind of kept it up out of the way as much as possible. Now on the bottom here, this is an additional accessory. This is, again, Small Rig. You're gonna see a lot of Small Rig today, guys. But this is a sort of riser base plate that allows you to add 15mm rods. And then on the bottom, I just have the tripod plate that I use for my tripod quick releases. So a whole bunch of metal, you know, it does beef it up a little bit. It's obviously not super heavy, but you know, that's the whole Small Rig. This is our core that we're gonna be able to mount everything onto. So what we're gonna do real quick, I have a second camera set up today. I got a little fancy, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount this guy here, and on this little rig here, we are actually going to build my rig in its entirety here. How's the focus on that one? I might shift the focus. Give me just a second. I thought I had it set, but let's see what we got. That guy's in there. How we looking? Little soft, little soft, little soft. Come on. And that might be, there we go. That's looking good. Sorry about that, guys. Full manual lenses, you know, that's the way that I roll. But so you can see here, okay, we've got our core mounted on here. We've got room for top handle. We've got, of course I just did that, now I'm gonna undo it. But we've got this rosette on the other side that we're gonna be able to make use of. And we have this system for the rails right here as well. So we're gonna get this guy built up during this show today for you guys. So let's get back to our chat screen. I see we've got Aaron from New Legend Pictures in here. He says, cool. Yeah, it is pretty cool, man. It's gonna be fun. When it's done, it's gonna be pretty awesome. So we'll put this thing together like awesome cinematic Legos. A little mimosa sip here. All right, to the next bits. I've mentioned these, but we're gonna go through them. So obviously we are on the Small Rig fan club train here today. So this is a Small Rig top handle. They make tons of different top handles, so you don't have to use this particular one. But this one I kind of liked. You know, it's got the NATO rail mount here, so it'll be easy to clip to the top. With that NATO rail that I put on there. Plenty of mounting points all over it. It actually has an Allen key. Let's see if I can get the light. It actually has an Allen key captured in here. So if you do need to tighten stuff with the tool, it just kind of magnetically sits in there. It's very nice. It has a shoe mount at the back end, as well as a shoe mount here at the front. And it actually has a little locking pin that is spring-loaded to keep anything from falling out of this front shoe. And it has this knurled nut here that you can turn. It loosens up these rosette teeth here, and you can then turn the handle into whatever direction you want and then lock it back down. So I have a link to this particular one down below, but of course you can use any top handle that you would like. If you want something with a rubberized grip, if you want something that's just full metal, or something from a different company, feel free to go that route too. This is just the one that I sort of fell in love with, both for aesthetic and functionality reasons. Damascus Diaries in here, manual lenses. I don't know whether I hate autofocus because I use Lumix or that I use Lumix because I hate autofocus. Yeah, that's a whole conversation for a different day. I use manual lenses just because I do. I'm old school like that, so. But yeah, so let's get this mounted onto the rig. So we have this NATO rail up top that has these little detents that stop it, that are spring loaded. Very easy. We just take this guy, click it onto the rail, so you can see it won't fall off with those things there. And then just a quick tighten of this knob here. And there we go. We've got a top handle mounted on our rig. So let's keep moving right along here. Like I said, keeping that small rig train going, we have a side handle. So in addition to operating this camera on a tripod, I also do want to be able to kind of quickly take it off and perhaps get some handheld stuff. Now, it doesn't have any in-body stabilization or anything like that, so you really want to try and get the most points of contact and the most comfortable way to hand-hold the camera so that hopefully you can keep your footage stable. It's still not super easy to keep it stable, especially if you don't have a stabilized lens kind of helping you out a little bit. But, you know, the hand grip, it helps. This is from Small Rig as well. Pardon me. And going with that, going with that little wood accent aesthetic, you know, like make it look fashionable at the same time. So this one has a rosette mount. They do have it with tons of different mounts, but I wanted this to go directly onto that rosette mount on my Small Rig cage. And it has this little nut that's captive in here that you just spin and you'll be able to screw it on. And of course you can loosen it and twist this into different positions because it has the rosette teeth. So you'll be able to do that. So let's get this guy mounted on there. You know, not a whole lot to say about a handle. It's a handle, so. But as you can see, we have that rosette right here in a really nice spot, and this guy is going to mount onto that. So let's go ahead and get that going. So I'll just line it up and start spinning that nut there. And I'm gonna keep this guy pretty much vertical for right now. So there we go. So yeah, nice firm grip. But like I said, give it a few turns to loosen this up and you can twist it into whatever position or configuration you would like. But I'm gonna go ahead, tighten that guy down. Boop. And there we go. So now we have that handle mounted on the side here. Let me get this guy out of the way for you. There we go. But we have that handle mounted on the side. Will help us grip it, along with the top handle up top. So we've got a few mounting points. You know, we could run and be like this, and yeah. So it's coming along. It's coming along. All right. So the next bit, we're sort of still building the sort of core that to turn this into a cinema rig, building it out. And so, of course, one of the industry standards is 15mm rails. This is going to allow you to put stuff like if you wanted to put a matte box on there, if you wanted to put a follow focus on there, which we will be doing. And also, this is actually going to help mount the power solution that I'm going to be adding to it in just a minute. Let's see what we got in here in the chat real quick. I see Trevor saying Camvate also makes a top handle just like that, but it's only $46. Very well built, solid metal. Very nice. So yeah, you don't have to go Small Rig, obviously. There's tons of manufacturers out there that make different ones. So top handles, side handles, anything you find that you like, you can of course use. I've just listed the particular items that I'm using down below, because the beauty is that with all the mounts on a cage, you know, you've got 1/4-20, you've got 3/8, then you add NATO rails, you know, and Airy style rosettes, you know, all of these are kind of industry standard. So you're going to be able to find companies that make things that attach to those. So that's nice. You have a ton of flexibility. There is a world of accessories out there, especially for rig stuff, just, you know, metal pieces that all connect together. Sorry, I'm just changing the rotation on my handle a little bit there. My OCD, I saw it was like 5 degrees off. I had to get it back to where I wanted it. But anyway, rods. So rods are another thing where there's a bajillion options out there for 15mm rods. But to try and save on weight as much as possible, you know, it's probably just a few ounces. I went with carbon fiber. These are also from Small Rig, but there are plenty of companies that make rods, some that thread together, these don't, but these are 12-inch 15 millimeter rods, carbon fiber. And the reason I chose these is because these are the right length for the lenses that I'm going to be using on here. So I'm going to be using my Schneider Xenon lenses, and these 12 inchers end up being the correct length, but you can get them in all sorts of lengths. You can get them in aluminum, you can get them in black aluminum, you can get them in just like straight, silver. It's up to you. But these carbon fiber ones, I really, really liked. So let's go ahead and get these into that rig and we can really start shaping it up. So as you can see, the Small Rig here has, or this base plate that I added, this riser plate, has 2 slots for these rails. So we'll take them and slide them in. And if you take a look here, what I'm going to do is actually have them jut out the back a little bit here, because we're actually going to be mounting a power solution on here as well that's also going to clamp onto these rails. So now I have room out front to mount stuff that can control my lens, namely the follow focus, and I also have room at the back here to mount the stuff that I'm going to do back there. So then all you got to do is these little rods or little clamps here. Clamp it down, don't have to go super tight, but they are now snug in there, and this thing's starting to look like a little bit of a camera rig now. So we're getting together, and I think that is the end for sort of the base core components, if you will. Like I said, a lot of Small Rig in there, but I just love Small Rig stuff. You can use whatever you'd like. Let's see what we got. Looks like Furworks has used that $46 CamVate handle on all of his cameras. Got a few of them very solid, but has a few issues. Oh, interesting. Trevor says he hasn't had any issues with his, so maybe they have a QC quality control issue. Maybe some are better than the others. Furwork says you don't have the large top thumb screw come loose over time as you're shooting with it. I have periodically tightened them. I have a feeling you're talking to Trevor about the top handle from CamVate that you guys use. I know that on, I haven't had any problems with this top nut up here. Even just using your fingers, I mean, you're able to get that really snug, and it's not a problem for coming loose and swinging around. But I have a feeling you guys are talking about that CamVate option. Trevor says, I have short and long Small Rig carbon rods, but on longer lens setups they flex, so I switch over to steel rods for that. Oh, interesting. Yeah, my lenses are these. So I'm throwing. Anybody want an Ace hardware coupon? But my lenses that are my primaries are the Schneider Xenons, and they are cine lenses, so they're all the same length, and their gears are at the exact same points, so I don't have to worry about doing a longer setup. But if I did rent a lens, like something that was far longer than these, that's a good note that if you're getting some flex with carbon fiber, if you're going 16, 18-inch rods, then perhaps then you want to go with steel. Or aluminum. So that's a good note, but I haven't run into that quite yet. Kyle's asking, have you used an iPhone yet for monitoring? So no, I have not used an iPhone yet for monitoring on this. So that is an option with the Z CAMs. They do have a Wi-Fi, let's see here. They do have a Wi-Fi output here. It's probably not in focus, but right here, and you can add a little antenna to it, and then you can connect to it, and then you can control with and monitor with a phone. But I wanted to go a little bit better option, so I do have a monitor solution that we're going to be using. And you know what? That's a great segue, Kyle. We're going to look at the monitor that that I chose to use for this particular setup next. So let's get into that. Again, this is something that I talked about in the last show briefly, and I'm really excited about its capabilities, and that is this monitor that I got, because it's more than just a monitor. Let's get it here. feel like I need like a Santa sack here where I just keep pulling goodies out of it, you know. But anyway, guys, here is the monitor that I picked up. You can see very clearly that it is a touchscreen because you can see my fingerprints all over it. But this is the PortKeys BM5. And not only is it a super bright, I think it goes up to like 2200 nits, so you can see it outdoors, monitor. It's full metal, but it also has a whole bunch of other tricks up its sleeve. And in particular, the one that I really liked is that it can control the Z CAM. Now, not only can it control a Z CAM, but it can control Sony cameras, it can control Arri cameras, it can control, I believe, Red cameras, Canon cameras. Basically, they're coming out with cables and functionality to control pretty much every camera through this touchscreen. So what I like about that is it almost turns it into, if anybody's ever worked with like a Red before, you know that all the controls and everything, you know, it's a body with a brain without a monitor, but then you attach your monitor, and not only that, but it is all of your controls. So this allows you to do that with the Z CAM, and it's awesome. The other part is I have something on here which is not necessarily super needed for this particular setup, or for this particular camera, for the Z CAMs, but this is the BT1 unit. This is a Bluetooth unit that PortKeys makes that bolts onto this. So I bought this as a package, and you can get it, but what this does is it allows you to, over Bluetooth, control the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K and the Pocket 6K cameras, which I actually have both of those. So that means that this monitor I can use to control 3 of my cameras now, which gives, I like my stuff to be versatile and be a good investment. That can do that. So you can get this monitor and save some money without the BT1 module. You don't have to get this. And I have links to both with and without in the description down below, so that you can also go ahead and pick which one you want if you want it. Full metal, can run on Sony batteries here, but we're going to be powering it from a center solution. This cable actually just is connecting it has a, what do they call it? It says focus puller, so there's an output here, and it actually goes over to the BT1, which actually powers the Bluetooth module, but also gives you 2 additional outputs for power. One that goes to a focus motor, and we'll get to that, and one that can go to a camera. So you could actually run power into this and then out of this and then power your camera from it if you get the right connecting cable there, which is kind of crazy. And then of course input voltages. It has SDI inputs here and then a single HDMI in. So it's got SDI in and out. HDMI, unfortunately, it just has in. There is no HDMI out. So it's got buttons up at the top. Real quick function buttons over here that you can program. It's amazing. It is a touch screen on here, so really easy to use. Gary's asking what was the monitor name again? It is the PortKeys BM5. PortKeys BM5, and there are links down in the description below if you want to go and check it out. I've got everything in there, so I spent a lot of time looking up some links, man. But yeah, it's all in there for you. And yeah, this thing is like a perfect pairing, match made in heaven for a Z CAM. Actually, for any of the Z CAMs, it's pretty freaking cool. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I don't miss anything in the chat as we go in here. Carbon fiber rods, talking about giving the small rig top handle. Okay, Kyle's also saying you can also use lightning to USB-C. You have an E2C. So yeah, he brings up a good point. There is also a USB-C output on this that you can use to connect via a cable to a phone and monitor that way as well. So that is also an option. If you didn't want to get a monitor like this, you could get like a phone clamp, put it on top, and mount your phone in there and use your phone to control. I usually find that on sets, I'm using my phone for other things. I try and avoid controlling things with my phone, but that is an option there. And let me know what you think of the E2C. I've been interested in picking those up. I've actually been thinking about picking up an E2C to replace my G7 for my sort of like webcam thing. But I mean, I don't know. The G7 is, she's never done me wrong. I mean, I don't know why I'd really replace her, but I was interested in it. Trevor's saying, the only reason I haven't bought something like a PortKeys is that I'm still hopeful the S1H will have ProRes RAW out soon, so we'll need the Atomos. Yeah, this is not a recorder, so yeah, you know, if you are hoping to be able to record something higher out of another camera, Z CAM and Blackmagic's, obviously they already do ProRes, not ProRes RAW, but yeah, you're right. But this is a fantastic monitor. Monitor and controller. I mean, the functionality is crazy. I'll show you guys some of the stuff it can do. And then on the bottom here, I can't leave this out. This did not come with the monitor, just so you know. There is a 1/4-20 on the bottom and a 1/4-20 on the top. This is another small rig part. This is a small rig monitor mount that is actually friction based, so it will swivel as well as tilt. Just based on friction, so you can position the monitor very easily just wherever you want once you mount it to it. And I have the version that clips into a cold shoe, and of course you can get versions, they have that clip onto NATO rails and all sorts of stuff. So let's go ahead and get this guy mounted onto the rig, and I'll show you how we're gonna start wiring this beast up. So let's go to camera 2. I know I'm gonna have to move it up, but first I'll just get this guy into the shoe. And I'll move this up, guys, so that you can see the monitor. It just becomes a very tall rig now. All right. So there we go. Now you can see we have the PortKeys mounted up top. You can see that we have all the power connections and control connections in the back here. This tripod head is not level, and it's going to drive me nuts. That's a little better. But yeah, the PortKeys is up here. You can power it with just a battery here, but we're not gonna do that. We're gonna run some other power. So let's see what we've got going on. Let me swivel this guy here. I think we'll be looking at that next. So into chat. Furworks is saying, yeah, I've been considering the E2C also to try and replace my G7, but the G7 is still working just fine. It's an unexpected workhorse for a fixed studio setup. Yeah, the G7, I mean, when you pick them up, when they go on sale and stuff for that $500 with a lens, that's what I've done with mine, and it's been awesome. That's what we're on right now. Pretty cool. Kyle says, I use USB-C to USB-C to my iPad Pro, and it's great. Oh, okay, so you're using the iPad Pro to monitor, which you can just do a USB-C to USB-C cable. That's a large monitor solution. The PortKeys is only a 5-inch monitor. I find that to be enough, especially because it is super bright and super sharp. But yeah, using an iPad, I mean, larger screen, right? You know, how big do you want to go? But that's pretty cool that that is an option. Okay, now we got to start. Let's see, where do I want to go? I've got a bunch of cables. Okay, before we start messing with cables, let's get some power. That's what we're gonna do. All right, so you can power the PortKeys monitor with a Sony battery. You can power the Z CAM with a Sony battery, so you could put a battery on each and do that. But there are so many options for universal power on this rig, and I use V-mount batteries, and I want to have just a single battery that will run everything on this rig. That includes the follow focus that we're going to be putting on there, that includes the monitor and the camera. I want one battery to run it all. So how do we do that? Well, there's lots of solutions out there for adding a V-mount setup to any 15mm rail system or camera rig. I'm just going to show you the one that I have. This was actually something that the individual that I purchased this kit from, the camera with the cage and a few other little accessories, this was one of the things that he had picked up and put it in there, and I had never actually heard of this. It's called Headbox. And it's a universal V-mount plate. You know, it's got D-taps out here, and so there's 3 D-taps out, 2 on one side, 1 on the other, and there's actually a USB output up at the top too. So that's pretty cool. So you'd be able to click your battery onto here. It doesn't directly go into the camera. Basically, you're going to have to pull off of these D-tap ports, but we're going to show you all the cabling and everything for that. And then you need a mounting plate, and so this is a mounting plate that goes with it. It is a separate purchase, but I have both linked down below, that adapts it. So it's a metal cheese plate here that it screws to, and then you have your 15mm rods so that we're able to mount it to the rig. So I mean, not much more to say about that. You know, all the electronics are self-contained in here. Like I said, it's not plugging directly in. They do have ones that have dummy batteries out if you wanted a dummy battery for a specific camera. But this universal one is pretty cool because, again, it means if I wanted to then use this on my pocket camera rig, you know, if I put it on rails, I could pop this on the back, D-tap to the correct cable for the pocket cameras, and you can do that. So versatility, I find, is key when I get products, and I'm very happy that the guy that I picked up the camera and some of these accessories from seems like he has the same mindset. So very thankful for this right here. So let's go ahead and let's get this mounted on here. I'm gonna move tilt this down again. I need like a camera op for this show, you know. All right, so this is pretty simple. It's gonna slide right onto the back here, just like that. It will have stops because it hits the back of the plate. But now we have a V-mount plate here at the back. Now I'm not gonna tighten this down because we do have some stuff we're gonna have to do in here in terms of connecting a battery and power and all that kind of stuff in here. So we're not gonna tighten it down just yet. I'm gonna show you guys what we're gonna do to get that up and running. Okay, back to the chat, see if we got anything. Talking about the E2C, best camera he's ever owned. Kyle loves it, awesome. What's the crop factor on the G7? You know what, I think it's just 2. I'm not sure, it's micro four thirds, but anyway, let's carry along. So power, now we have a mount on the back that can take a V-mount battery. You can use any V-mount battery. I use these what is their company called now? Core SWX. They used to be Switchtronics. Core SWX. I like this battery. It's 98 watt hour. It's their slim, so it's not super bulky, but of course you can put whatever battery you want on there. I'm just gonna set this aside for right now until we get everything all wired up. But the next bit is you're gonna need to get power into the camera. There's tons of solutions you could find. You could go and grab a cable that'll plug directly into the power port on the back of this camera so that you could run it off of one of the D-taps. But the solution that I have is a dummy battery. So this is a Sony dummy battery unit to a D-tap right here. So this will come off of that head box and will go into the back of the camera. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So like I said, it's gonna make it a lot easier. I haven't attached this guy down, so I'm gonna take this guy off and I'll show you guys. So all we're gonna do is right here on the Sony. So as you can see, there is, where is it? There is a power input right here. So if you wanted, you could just get a cable from DTAP to this power input and power it that way. Lots of different options, lots of flexibility. But I find that this works. So just get it in there. Find it can be a little snug. There we go. And click, it's locked into place. There we go. Now what we will do is we'll take this guy, get him on there. And actually I will go ahead and lock this down. We can loosen it and move it if we need to, but what I'm gonna do is take this cable, I'm just gonna kind of loosely tuck it in there, and there we go. Plug into that DTAP. So when we throw the battery on there, we will now have power to the camera. And the nice thing is that since all the power is coming off of the plate, you know, once your battery's dead, you just take the battery off. You don't have to pull cables off the battery. You know, everything is still there. And we're gonna add some more cables and power up some more stuff here. So let's keep plugging along. All right, okay. So let's power our monitor. How about that? So again, we have tons of options for powering the PortKeys monitor. You can put a Sony battery directly on it. You could feed all sorts of power. There's tons of options for powering it. Let's just say that. But because we've got that DTAP set up, what I have here is a PortKeys specific cable. So they are kind of tiny connectors. Again, links down in the description below. Actually, I think this one actually came with the PortKeys monitor, so check on that. But allows it to DTAP off of that power port. So let's get the monitor plugged in and powered up. And at the same time, we're gonna plug in HDMI to the monitor so that we have a visual. And this is just a thin HDMI cable, nothing special. You can pick up whichever one works for you, whichever length you need. So let's get that built right now. This does seem a little bright, but I want you guys to be able to see. There we go. Okay, so we are going to, first let's get power. So at the back of the PortKeys here, we have power input right here. It'll take 7 to 24 volts in, so no worries about shorting this thing out. Line up that little LEMO connector. It's nice and snug. Then take this, route it. Like I said, this isn't going to be the best cable management in the world. But then what I want to do, spin this around this way, the handle's a little long, is just into the side of one of these, plug it in. Now when we put a battery on the back, in fact, let's go ahead and do that right now. We now have power running to the camera and we have power running up to our monitor. Sorry, this arm's getting in the way. And now we're gonna run HDMI. So HDMI comes out of here in the camera. It's right at the back top, so you kind of got to squeeze in there. You could remove that V-mount plate if it's getting in your way. Like I said, just connect HDMI, and then on the side of the PortKeys here is where the HDMI input is. So please forgive the messiness. We'll plug that in. Oh, and I don't think I showed you guys before, but like I said, this small rig mount allows you to, just with friction, swivel and tilt, which is really nice, really handy. So that's that small rig. Okay, so we're coming together. Things are looking kind of funky. I know this isn't the best shot because it's super, super tall. But you're getting the idea. So we've got a few other things. So we've got power to the accessories that we've got on there right now. What we need to add is camera control. All right. The great thing about the E2s, okay, let's see what we got. Think about internal batteries on S1H. Let's see here. Talking about blocking screens, but yeah, the Z CAM doesn't have a screen on the back. Yeah, it doesn't have a screen. Kyle's asking, how long does the battery last me? Have I had a chance to test? I haven't actually run one completely down, but the nice thing about, I'll show you off of here. The nice thing about these guys, let me reduce the glare, is when they're under load, it'll show you exactly how long they'll last. And I believe I get about 3 hours. When the camera's running and recording, this number here will adjust depending on how much juice is being pulled from it, and it tells you exactly how much time you have left. So I don't actually have to run a battery dry to know how long it'll last. So about 3 hours on a 98 watt hour is what I've been seeing. And that'll vary depending on frame rates and all, you know, how many accessories and stuff you have attached, you know, whether you're powering a monitor with it as well and all of that. But the power consumption is pretty good from what I can tell. Trevor's saying, I bet everything you have there doesn't even weigh more than 7 or 8 pounds max. Yeah, it's not super heavy when it's done. In fact, one of the heaviest bits is going to be when I put the lens on. All right, let's keep moving along. Like I said, the next thing that we need is to control the camera. So this is a cable from PortKeys. They make them for various types of cameras. This is the one for Z CAM. So it has a USB, a mini USB here that goes into the PortKeys. There's a port on the bottom of the monitor I didn't actually show you, but it has the remote control thing. And then the other end of this is a Lank controller cable. Made for working with the Z CAM and I believe Sony's. But I have a link to this, and you can find from PortKeys tons and tons of connections and cables for whatever other camera systems you may want to use it with. Keep in mind that the only camera system that does not have a cable that you could use and will not is those Blackmagic Pocket 4K and 6K. They do not have a remote input via a cable, which is why PortKeys came out with that Bluetooth, the BT1 unit, to be able to control those cameras. All the other cameras and everything, you should be able to find a cable from PortKeys that will allow you to control it. So let's get this in there so we can get some control going. Let's see if I can show this to you. So here, I don't know if you can see, it's out of focus, but right here there's an insert, and in there is a mini USB, and it says camera remote. So that's where we'll go ahead and plug that in. So it's just a micro USB, not micro, mini. Make sure, boop, it's nice and snug. It's kind of recessed, which is nice. And then the other end here is our Lank. Now there is a Lank port on the back of the camera that you could plug this directly into if you were done. But I have something else that I want to plug into control, so we're going to let this just hang out for right now and get that going. So let's go ahead. I'm going to bring you guys back down to looking at the actual body because we're going to work on that and get a few more bits added to that before we work on the plug in the monitor and all of this stuff again. So I know there's a lot of cables and a lot of stuff going on, but like I said, I've mapped everything out, so hopefully you guys will be able to find it and put it together. I just love that all these things can connect together, and you'll see. You'll be able to control this thing and everything in so many different ways. All right, now we're gonna get to what somebody had asked about so far towards the beginning. Sorry it took us so long to get there. But I wanted a follow focus system on there. And yes, you could just put a manual follow focus, you know, onto the rails and go there. But I did want the option to be able to go wireless if need be, and have somebody else pull focus for me if I attached like a wireless HDMI system as well to it. And I had never tried it out before, but I decided to go with this guy, the Tilta Nucleus Nano. This thing is actually incredible for the price. Like, it is insane what this little guy can do. And I mean, it's, you know, is it the best in the world? No, but it's really affordable and it's so cool. see real quick here. Kyle says, so I missed the beginning. Why did you pick the F6 over the S6? Was it just because of the full frame, or were there other reasons? And why not the F8? Short answer is yes, the full frame, but also there's actually some more, there's a combination of resolutions and frame rates in the F6 that I liked over the S6, and the F8, even though it goes to 8K, it actually loses some of those frame rates and resolutions. So really, you'll have to go to the Z CAM website and like really nitpick through the specs and the resolutions and stuff like that. But I found the F6 to really be that sweet spot. It's like it had all the capabilities of the S6, but then also went full frame. So it kind of seemed like the right choice. But then spending more to go even higher, really all you were getting was resolution with the 8K with the F8, but you were actually losing some of the capabilities that the other two had. So that's why. But yeah, so Nucleus Nano, it's awesome. I mean, it's a simple little hand unit here, takes a battery, super, super cool. Here is the motor. You can provide different voltages to this if you have stiffer lenses. Yeah, but it just takes a USB in to power it. And yeah, it's pretty freaking cool. So not much to say about this, that this clamps on, and then we're going to get this onto the body there. So let's get our focus control on here. If you do want some more detail on this, let me know. I'm just watching the time as we move through all this stuff. And I do want to get this booted up for you guys. So I'm going to take my motor. I'm just going to roughly put it in place here and tighten the knob. And then remember this mount right here? Well, here's a little shoe on the back of this guy. Slides right in. Click lock in place. And now I have this. Obviously we're not powered yet. We need to get power to this guy. This guy has a battery inside that powers it. But you know, I could pop this off now, hand it to my AC. They could go and they could pull focus for me remotely. And something we'll get into, this does have a record button, so you can start and stop, and we are going to make use of that. But for right now, let's crank that guy on there and keep moving right along. All right, let's see what we got. So yeah, talking about the F8 camera compromising on frame rates because it's a lot of data to process. Yeah, but even in some of the lower resolutions, it seemed like it gave up some stuff. I forget exactly, but I just didn't need 8K. I think the F6 really just fell into that sweet spot of resolution and capabilities. That was pretty cool. All right, so we've got the Nucleus Nano on there. Now we need to power that front motor. Here's the cool thing. This is a cable that will connect to the USB. It is a micro USB for that Nucleus Nano motor. And the other end of this connects into the PortKeys monitor. So that BT1 unit has an output for the focus motor that'll provide power to it. So instead of running something like a D-tap all the way back and cluttering that up, we're going to just power directly from the monitor. And actually, I haven't really played around with it yet, but I've heard that this cable will also allow you to actually control the Nucleus Nano motor, change your focus with the focus motor from the PortKeys monitor just by touching and doing that. That is freaking awesome. So here we go. We're going to get this plugged in so that we can get some power going. Okay. Again, links to all these things are down in the description below, guys. If you're getting lost with, wait, what is that cable? Who makes it? Where did it come from? So I'm going to plug you in up here. I know it's off screen, but it's just a motor power output, little LEMO cable from the PortKeys. Like I said, you're going to want to do a little bit of cable management. For right now, I'm just going to kind of tuck this down here and make a mess. But then this guy connects to this motor. And actually, I believe the moment we plug it in, it's going to get power because it's passing it through. So if we click, did this guy power on? Yep. So power is coming from the battery, going via D-tap into the BM5, coming out of the BM5 and going into this motor. Unfortunately, the only way to really turn this motor off is to pull this cable. So sometimes I disconnect it from the monitor. So that's kind of a little fiddly. I wish that wasn't the case. But obviously, this little guy in standby is not going to drain this giant battery anytime soon. So not really a super big deal. But then I could, you know, power this guy on right here. They're connected, and I think you can see that focus motor is turning. Obviously no lens, so I haven't calibrated it yet, but they are talking to each other, and I could pop this off and do it from wherever I want, and it's working. Now, some people, one of the issues with the Tilta Nucleus Nano that a lot of people have found out is actually if the focus motor and this control unit are too close together, you actually get signal dropouts. It's kind of weird. I've had 90% stability with this particular distance, but if I had a shorter lens, you know, I'd have to move this in, and then I might start having some trouble. So I am considering doing some more testing with that, and perhaps even moving this motor over to the other rail, just flip it to the other side to put a little more distance between them. But that's something to keep in mind. It is a known quirk of the Tilta Nucleus Nano, is that if these are too close together, it actually loses signal and cuts out, which is super counterintuitive. I mean, you would think the closer the better, but just something to keep in mind. So do keep that in mind if you're going with the Nucleus Nano. Let's see, we got a couple of questions here before we can get it. Trevor says, you can also drive the Nano with a tiny power bank if you're pressed. Yeah, anything that can feed into that USB input for it, yeah, you could run it. There is something to keep in mind with that, though. If you're using a USB power bank, you're only giving the motor 5 volts. Now, it is able to take up to like 8 point something volts, which actually, the setup that I'm using right now, the PortKeys monitor actually gives it that maximum voltage for the Nucleus Nano, and it actually makes it stronger. So if you have stiffer lenses and it's running off of 5-volt USB, the Nano motor is struggling, you may have to find a solution to give it a little bit higher voltage, you know, something closer to like 8 or 9 volts, because it will change the strength of that motor to be able to handle stiffer lenses. So just something to keep in mind. But mine, with this setup, it works perfectly. It feeds at the maximum voltage, it's at full power, so it should be able to handle most lenses that I put at it. Pre-ordered the Nano, it's no brainer. Rob was asking, if memory serves, you went with the EF mount. Why did you go that route? Also, can you change the mount to PL later? So yes, I went EF mount, mainly because that has been my main lens mount forever. So all of my lenses are EF mount, and I adapt when needed to like the Pocket 4K or the GH5 or something like that. But everything is EF mount. It is by far the mount that I prefer. You can, in the future, they are coming out with mounts, different mounting options. If you look on the front here, let me get you a good look at it. You can see there are actually some screws up here for this mount, and you will be able to change it to PL mount or something else later in the future. But I am going to stick with EF because EF is the system that I use the most. So it's personal preference, it's what you've got. I just have a large inventory of lenses that are EF mount. Kyle says, I think you can use Tilta's bigger motors with that focus wheel. Yes, the Nucleus M system, the larger system, you can use the Nano wheel to control those. And you can use the other Tilta Nucleus system controllers to control the Nano motor. So they're all very interchangeable and everything. So it's a really cool system. What's my media workflow? We'll get into that a little bit later. Maybe I'll do a show about working with some of the media from this camera. But I do record to CFast cards. So I was an Ursa Mini guy, so I actually have a bunch of CFast cards. I have some Angel Bird ones here, I have some Pro Grade ones, and I have some Lexar ones, but I use CFast internal. See, that might be a pretty big issue with my Pocket 4K, and because the Nucleus Nano would be very close to the motor. So yeah, keep that in mind. If they are too close, the motor and the control wheel, you will have signal dropouts. You'll be turning it and it won't do anything. You're like, what? And then all of a sudden it'll catch up and do the moves that you just did. So something to keep in mind. Shiznut says the Z CAM handle anamorphics with a special mode. You know what? I admittedly have not been able to dive deep enough into using it to answer that fully at this time. So I don't know. I really have not had a ton of time to dive into this camera in terms of the internal capabilities and stuff. So I'll need to do that. Shame on me. At least we're quarantined, so hopefully I'll have the chance to do that, right? Okay. So we're getting towards the end here of the stuff that I got. My pile of goodies is actually just about depleted. So the last thing I wanted to show you guys is actually two things. So the other cool trick, like I said, that Tilta Nucleus motor has a record button, or the control handle, the wheel controller, has a record button on there, so a run stop as well. Now, in order to get that to work, there is actually a Lanc output on the Nucleus motor that then you can plug into the camera. Now, you do need a special cable, of course. So here is the cable. There is a link down in the description below, but this will allow you to control the start and stop of the camera with the Nucleus Nano wheel. So what it does is it'll wirelessly send a signal to the motor, and then the motor over this cable will send that to the camera to be able to start and stop. So my AC could take it and run off and start stop from wherever he may be. Or if I just want to use it as another record button because my hand's right there, I can do that as well. Now, obviously, we still have a Lanc cable that we need to input from the PortKeys monitor to be able to control. So, simple solution. This is from Alvin's Cables. This is just a Lanc splitter for Z CAM. So what we'll do, so I'll take this, plug it into one of these. So this will allow me to connect both the PortKeys as a controller and the Tilta motor as a controller and get it here. So yeah, Trevor's saying, let's power it up. I know, I'm trying to get us to that. All right, so here we go. So I won't be able to show you guys very well, but there is a Lanc remote connector in there. So this will become a big mess, but pop that splitter in. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this cable. I'm just gonna let it hang. Normally I would tidy it up a little better. And we're gonna plug it into our motor here. So now this motor is connected to the camera, and this guy is connected to that wirelessly. Then we had the PortKeys monitor, and remember we were leaving this Lanc cable from the PortKeys just hanging out. Well, here, let's plug this into the other receptacle of that Y splitter. Now we have both connected. So now everything is rigged up, is powered, control is all ready. Let's go ahead and real quick, let's, so we have this Cine style mount. Let me pull this off. Let's get a lens on there. So I'm gonna pop my Schneider 35 on there. So this is a Cine style mount where you take the lens. Let me get this motor out of the way. It's not like a normal EF where you twist click it in. You line the dots up, get it to rest in there nicely. There she is. And then you twist to get a nice solid lock on there. And there we go. Let's get that off. Let's take this motor, get it lined up with my focus gears. And if I hold the calibration button on the Nucleus, so there's a calibration right here. So I'm just gonna hold that. and it'll calibrate itself to the lens. And there it goes. It goes from one end to the other. And now it knows exactly. Oh, gotta love cine lenses. Look how far that goes. And now it's all set. And as I turn this, I have focus control. Or I can take this off, be anywhere I want, be over here, and I have focus control. So that's pretty cool. So if I'm by myself and we need to pull focus, I can just leave this right here. You know, if I'm going handheld or something like this, you know, I have the ability to change my focus right here on the side. Sorry about all the crazy cables. I know this is messy. Just tuck that out of the way. But yeah, so there's the focus control. Let's get the camera powered up. So the power button is right here. There we go. How am I going to show you this? Okay, so this will be the best way to do it. So it's booting up. It says, oh, we have no media in there. So let me go ahead. I actually have to remove this. Let me just get my card in there. It just click lock. Okay. There we go. All right, so now we've got media in there. I'm gonna boot up the PortKeys monitor as well, and I will show you guys all these different bits. I just wanna show you. So right here we have the tally lamp up here that'll show you. So here we go. This is the record button. So I'm wireless. If I hit this, it should start recording. Let's see. Now I might have it running the wrong direction. Let's see. Is it talking? Oh, it's not in all the way. There we go. So you just got to make sure that's in there all the way. So yeah, just using that record button up here. It won't get any live feedback from the camera. You know, it's just click it once and it's off. Click it once and it's back on. So I am able to start and stop remotely there, which is awesome. But now let's get to the PortKeys monitor. Sorry guys, I know I really want to show you that. I see people are like, that's pretty freaking cool. Good, I'm glad you think so. So here we go. I'm going to stop this down a little bit because that monitor is pretty bright. But let's see here if you guys can see that. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see, but I have it in the mode right now where I have camera control. So if I actually touch, I now have control over the shutter speed. So I can open and reduce the shutter speed of the camera. I can do the ISO. Obviously, I can't do the iris because I don't have an iris control on here. You know, it's a manual lens, but if you had an electronic lens, you could control the iris in there. So ISO, I can adjust my ISO on here. It doesn't show you, actually it does show you in the corners. I have a little bit of a frame guide on. So you can see the outputs. You know, I'm Z-Log 2. I'm using a LUT to monitor in here. Sorry, I'm going through this kind of quick. You can do your Kelvin temp, bring it up, bring it down. Variable frame rates, you can set it into VFR mode for doing high speed and whatnot. But here's the cool thing, if you can see it up here, there's a little button right here for record. Click it, and the camera's rolling. Click it, and the camera is stopped. So you have full camera control from this right here. And of course, you got all your normal function buttons, peaking, false color, all sorts of waveforms and stuff in here in this monitor. But really that functionality right there of just being able to control these various things. So let me get my ISO back down to 400. There we go. Looking pretty good. So that's a quick rundown of what the PortKeys monitor can do. Let me show you guys. I wonder if we can actually show you. Sorry guys, I'm making this work as best I can, but I want to try and show you. Let me dip it back. This might be too close to focus, but it's worth a shot. In case any of you haven't seen it, here we go. So that right there is the screen that you get on the top of the camera. So you can see your readouts, you can see what mode you're in and all that kind of stuff. But everything else, you know, you're really going to want to control through the PortKeys monitor. Just to show you again, here's this guy. You know, if I was operating, I could just click. And as you can see, camera's rolling. And click. Camera stopped. If I hit it on the PortKeys on the touchscreen, click. Camera's rolling. Click. Camera stopped. So pretty freaking cool. All right. I'm gonna leave that guy sitting like that for just a second, come back to the chat. I know we just did like a rapid fire run right there, so I wanna make sure I answer any questions that you guys may have about the craziness that is that rig that I just built. I know it's a lot of cables and a lot of pieces, but once it all comes together, it's just awesome. Like I said, I can control it in pretty much any way that I want, whether wirelessly or handheld or on a tripod, or start it and stop from the camera body, or use the BM5, which is amazing too. And the BM5, I didn't even show you guys, the BM5 can access the camera's menu system, and you can go through the camera's menu system. It's not just, you know, those little controls that I just showed you on screen right now. You can actually go into the camera's menu and operate it just as you would if you were on the camera body, which is pretty freaking cool. All right, let me get caught up here and see what we got. Tilta motors, we were talking about that. Media workflow, I told you I have CFast cards. Trevor saying, weirdly, I found the signal dropout happens way less when the motor has more than 5 volts coming in. In other words, little power banks are more problematic. That's interesting. I haven't tested that myself. Let's see here. BTM Pix on EOS HD had a cool gizmo for Blackmagic. Would be cool if it worked for Z cams. I'll have to take a look. Rob says, pretty effing cool. Yeah, I think so too. The fact that all these things just work together. I love the fact that I was able to do a Lank cable splitter and add control both from the monitor and from the Tilta. I mean, the versatility is just awesome, that you can just unbolt something, hand it to somebody and be like, all right, start the camera for me if I'm on like a gimbal or something. It's pretty cool. Kyle's saying, all these features that Z CAM gives you makes me feel the same way about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera gave me back in the day. Yeah, it is kind of exciting to see all this in there. And I you know, Z CAM making all their protocols open to all these manufacturers really allows a lot of these accessories to be made, and like I said, really turn it into a really easy to use cinema rig. So let's see what else we got. And honestly, if I owned the Z CAM, I'd probably mount the monitor directly to the camera for a lower profile setup. It's just so light, a top handle isn't always needed. That's a very good point. So let me show you what he's talking about. Like I said, it's to each his own, how you want to do it, or her own, of course. Let me go ahead and get this off of here. Don't let my groaning make you think it's super heavy, because it's not. I'm just old. But he was saying, you know, this is pretty tall right here, the way that I have it, and you could very, very easily ditch the top handle and actually just mount the monitor directly to the cage right here. You could most certainly do that. So, you know, now I'm able to operate like this. I've got my focus control, I've got my monitor, I can start, stop, I can do whatever I need, and I have the flexibility I've been playing with. You know, I've got mounting points where I could put a wireless mic system because there is an audio input, and I have an XLR breakout cable for this thing too. So you could run XLR audio into it, because we didn't really talk about audio. You know, in cinema camera terms, you usually just don't talk about, you know, we usually don't worry about like audio into the camera as much. But it does have mics to record scratch audio built in. So if that's all you need, then you're good to go. Let's see here. Really like the small form factor. The monitors also sit directly on the Red too. Yeah. So Reds also, yeah, they bolt their monitors directly to the top. New Legend Pictures, good to know the monitor can also control the menu of the camera. I was worried for my Pocket 4K. Yeah, so I haven't used this with the Pocket 4K, but anything that the Pocket cameras can do over Bluetooth, this monitor with the BT1 module should be able to control those cameras. And it's just awesome that this works just with the cable in here. I know there's a lot of cables, but I'm able to sort of tidy it up, and it's nice to have this little space back in here where I can kind of tuck and hide some crimes and shove everything in there. This looks really ugly right now, but with just a few minutes of work, you can really clean this thing up and have a really nice looking rig. And I've got like adapter plates and stuff on the bottom here. I could even slim this down even more. If I take this off of here, I just adapted my Manfrotto style to the Sackler head, but you know, there you go. It says, have a look at that later. Okay. I'm not sure which thing you're talking about, taking a look at. Oh, talking about anamorphics with a special mode. Okay. Yeah, I do need to dive into it. And Trevor's laughing at my comment that I'm just old. Yeah, you know, it's something that happens where, like, even if something isn't really hard, you seem to like groan when you do it, you know, like you get out of bed and you're like, ugh, and I'm like, I don't know why I did that. Like, that didn't really hurt or anything like that, but yeah. Whoops, my lens just knocked over the little bit remaining of my mimosa. Of course that was going to happen at the end of the show. But let's see what we've got going on here. Just dry that off there. There we go. Went right into the trash can. That's a good bit. But let's see what we've got here. Shizit says, by the way, unrelated to Z CAM, but could you do a video on live streaming? With social distancing, businesses and people are looking into communicating that way. Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that. I have a very interesting, non-typical setup right now because I've had to rebuild everything in this new space. But I can certainly look into doing a show about this particular live stream setup and how I set stuff up with OBS and whatnot and get all that going. And then Trevor says, another benefit of Z CAM, if you strip it down, they fly really, really well, even on small gimbals and also drones. Yeah, so he's saying, you know, while I may have built this beast, I still have the ability to strip the majority of all this stuff off of here, if not everything, and get it down to just a little cube with a lens. And then you can mount it on a gimbal, and you know, you don't have to use a super hefty lens like the one I have on here, but you can fly them on drones and you can do all sorts of stuff with it. So yeah, it's the form factor of the camera. You know, you have the flexibility to make it something gigantic like I have, which is still not even really gigantic, or you can keep it pretty small. Definitely something that had me really interested in the Z CAM form factor and body in the first place. But anyway, guys, I'm glad we were able to get through that. I know that was a lot there. We're a bit over an hour. We're almost, you know, an hour and 19 minutes, almost 20 minutes right now. So I'm probably going to start closing this out so I can go enjoy the rest of the Saturday afternoon here in quarantine. Maybe do some playing with some footage from the Z CAM. But if there are any last minute questions that you guys have, go ahead and pop those in and I will quickly field those. Otherwise, we're going to get everything all wrapped up. I'm going to put this rig back together over here. But yeah, let's see if we got anything. So took care of that. Nope, looks like we're good. All right, guys, so thank you very much for hanging out if you were here for the live. And if you are catching the replay of this and you've made it this far through, you are a trooper. Thank you very much. I hope you found this content helpful. I know there was a lot in here, but of course there are links to everything in the description down below, so you can go back and take a look at all of the items and pieces of this puzzle that I mentioned today. If you are watching the replay, consider subscribing and clicking that bell so that you can, let me go, see, I've got a button for it. Consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell so that when I do go live, you'll know about it and you can come in and hang out and have a good time, just like all of these fine people did today. Again, thank you all for hanging out. It's been great. We're gonna keep the schedule as we had before of the Saturday live streams going on at 1 p.m. and I may even add a couple, during the week. Now that we're all in quarantine, and live streaming really is a great way to connect with people and still be social and hang out. So I may have more. So really get that bell on and stay in touch. But goodness gracious, Kyle, right at the end with the super chat. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I'm sorry we got to cut it. But if you guys do have any other questions, the last thing I will say is I do have a Discord server. Link is down in the description below. And I'm also all over all the social media platforms. So if you want to follow me on there and get in touch with me if you have any other questions, and whether it be about Z CAM or any of these accessories or anything else, I'm down to chat, because you know what? We're all stuck in our houses. We need some interaction, man. Anyway, you guys take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe out there, and hopefully all of this will blow over and we can get back to playing with our cameras and our rigs again. All right, guys, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.